this meeting last week, but it wouldn't have mattered because I wouldn't have had an update for you on this bill because the bill hadn't even been filed yet. So within the span of 6 days in the Senate, there was a bill filed. They suspended the rules to get a bill filed on the clergy and pastor protection issue on religious freedom of marriage. That bill's already been moving in the House. House Bill 3567 was voted out of committee last week and has not been sent to calendars yet, but it's been about a week where, seems like it's slowed down, but we expect that it should be headed to calendar soon. But on the Senate side, apparently the Lieutenant Governor's office was very interested in this issue, wanted to see some movement. So a bill was filed last week on Tuesday evening. We were supposed to have a hearing on Thursday, but there was some consternation and objection from another senator about the timing and so on, whatever. We had the hearing yesterday, had dozens of pastors and religious leaders show up, had a great hearing. The ACLU attempted to force an amendment onto the bill. It seemed that there might have been some interest from Senator Huffman. She didn't say that specifically, but it seemed like there was a lot of questions from her about it and wanting to know the reasons why the amendment shouldn't come on. But the Senate broke, they went on the floor, and then the hearing resumed on that same bill, and it was clear that Senator Estes was in opposition to the amendment, and so was everyone that was testifying in favor of the bill. That was a good thing. There's already been one change made to this bill on the House side. That change was reflected on the Senate side, and it was that was after a committee hearing where some folks that are on the hard left wanted some changes, and one member wanted some changes. So we made a little bit of a change there on the House side that we think still keeps us with a strong bill, but with the idea that that's it. There will be no more changes to this bill. I mean, somewhat of a compromise and a change was made to make it clear what this bill was about, and so there wasn't any reason to suggest that it was going to go more broad. All that to say, the ACLU and other groups, they've identified that and acknowledged that in the letter. Thank you, Representative Saenz, for making this change, and that really took care of a lot of our concerns, but we just want this one other change. This little change over here. It's just 4 words, it's not a big deal. But anyway, they made a big deal about it yesterday, and so thankfully we fought the amendment off, or from coming on with some good testimony from lawyers. I testified, some other people testified, some other lawyers, and a lot of pastors saying that they didn't want it on. And so the bill was passed out 5-1, including the chair, Senator Huffman, voted for the bill without the ACLU amendment. Let me just tell you real quickly, and I can show you the letter, but the words are acting in that capacity. Those are the 4 words that they want. Here's the problem. What the media will tell you is, they're just trying, the ACLU is just trying to say that this is about religious freedom when clergy are acting in their capacity, and if it's not limited to that, it's going to be used for all these different ways. Well, the problem is when you add more words to a particular piece of legislation, you invite the court to now get into an additional level of analysis. Oh, well, this isn't about religious freedom. This is about a question of whether or not you are acting in your capacity. So you can imagine how that would make it a lot easier for someone to haul pastors into court, which is exactly what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to reduce the likelihood that religious leaders, that pastors, ministers, clergy are going to have to deal with this issue in court. I mean, we saw the Supreme Court last week have commentary, one of the Supreme Court justices on this issue, on the marriage case, and oral argument, talk about the concern of whether or not pastors would have religious freedom on the same level for constitutional protection if same-sex marriage was elevated to a constitutional right. That's a real concern. So this language, though, would also put us in a position, possibly, where people that are religious that perform marriages, their role would be just reduced to acting in the capacity of a religious leader, and then that's it. But they also wear the hat of performing a duty to the state with a state marriage license. As we know in their law, they're listed in statute as one of the people that can perform a valid marriage in the state of Texas. So if you say that when they're only acting in the capacity of a religious leader, are we now going to put pastors and clergy in a box to say they can only perform a religious ceremony part of the marriage, but this other part of the marriage that the state has to approve, no, they can't do that. But if they do, they're now acting in a different capacity. They're no longer in a capacity as a religious leader, so now we can force you to perform this same-sex marriage on that situation. And so that would be a nightmare, and whether or not that's the ACLU's goal, what is their goal? I mean, so often this is the group that is fighting us on religious liberty. I believe they filed an amicus brief in the Hobby Lobby case against the religious freedom arguments on that issue. It's clear that they have a difference of opinion. So Senator Huffman's, at least some of the suggestion between her and others was that there was an idea to seek consensus. this bill is not about consensus. It's about protecting the religious freedom of pastors and clergy and others. And so, and even Senator Estes recognized, look, how often do we get consensus? But having said that, 3 Democrats in the House have already signed on to the bill because of the small change that was made and the acknowledgement that Representative Sanford was really trying to work hard to make sure that the bill wasn't trying to do more than people thought it was going to do. So all that to say, we've got bills on both sides in the House and the Senate, 3567 in the House, 2065 in the Senate. They're both voted out of committee. So that is a very good thing that we've got 2 vehicles. Whether or not one will move quicker than the other, it's possible we could see 2065 go to the Senate floor by the end of this week. You know, they can move very quickly in the Senate if they want to. We'll see, but just don't be surprised by that. And so we've got 69 authors on the House side. The more Senate members we can get on as co-sponsors on that bill, the better. That'll keep it moving. And but what you'll just have to keep in mind is the media is going to continue to try to distort this bill because it's obviously making progress. And any type of legitimate religious freedom, you know, that the ACLU hasn't blessed. The legitimate religious freedom effort and success we have, they're going to try to distort. That's what they've done all along. On all these bills, other states you've seen it, to either try to suggest that you're really not doing anything or to overstate what we're doing and then to try to make a mess of it. And so, so we're going to work to keep that from happening. Yesterday was a big step in the right direction on that issue. There's another bill, 3864, that protects the conscience rights of foster care providers and adoption agencies on placement issues, but also not having to refer for abortions and things and birth control and things of that nature. That is moved out of the House last week, but it is also, I believe, in calendars. But it does have a Senate companion, but it's not the Senate companion. SB 1935, I don't believe is moved at all. So those are just a couple of issues, and I don't know if anyone's going to address the marriage front, but 4105, HB 4105, is out of committee, and that's the one that protects tax dollars being used for same-sex marriage licenses and a few other things. And so that one is kind of slowed down a little bit, if you will, but it's, I believe, headed, it's not in calendars already. So 1155, we haven't seen any work on, any movement on. We've been, you know, we had this 1155 is a Senate bill that would preempt the local laws on the issue of some of these local ordinances that deal with discrimination protection. Where we've seen this happen quite often is Houston, San Antonio, and Plano. They've come up with these ordinances that give gender identity and sexual orientation a protected class, oftentimes acting like they're giving freedom exemptions for religious freedom when they really aren't. They've been very problematic. So 1155 would simply say if you're going to expand the protected classifications for discrimination protection, you've got to follow state law. So in employment context and many others, we do have a special class for sexual orientation and gender identity. So that would mean these local ordinances would be retroactively nullified unless the state ever decides to expand those classes, and I don't see that happening anytime soon in the current climate we have and the leadership we have. But that's what 1155 would do. It wouldn't say that you couldn't protect those things as a private business. It would just say if you're going to do it as a local municipality, you just got to follow state law. And so unfortunately, we haven't seen any movement on that bill. There's hasn't even been set for a hearing. There's actually a House companion, House Bill 1556, and the chair of that committee is a former city councilor Democrat from Houston. So that's not exactly an ideal place to be on those issues. But certainly, if those things were to move and we were to get them passed, it would go a long way to sending a message to these local cities that they really should be following state law instead of creating the mess they are at the local level and denying the people the right to vote on the issue.
SB 10?
SJR 10?
Yeah, SJR, I'm sorry.
Nothing's happened on that. And whether or not that will get a hearing, it doesn't look very good at this
How about
point.
in the House with
125, same. Yeah, I haven't heard anything to suggest that that things have improved on those issues, unfortunately.
pretty much that?
Well, I'm not saying, I mean, look, the legislature's still in session. Things can move quickly when the members want them to.
I'm just trying to figure out where I should be focusing my attention.
Well, I mean, I encourage you, the ones that are moving, the two main ones that I mentioned, 3567 and 2065, because you've got a House and a Senate version on the pastor issue and the clergy, and then 3864 is moving also on the religious freedom issue.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay.
Thanks,